You may have heard these words before, but let me show you what it truly means.
Hey guys, MasakoX here. Now, one thing that we have talked about over the years on this channel is that the character development of the two main Saiyan characters is quite crucial to see become a new thing in the modern age of Dragon Ball. The show needs to adapt to changing times, and one thing that Dragon Ball Super did right was to tweak the show both stylistically and narratively so that it would fit better in the modern world of anime. If you compare episode 1 of Super to the final episode of Super, you feel that the latter blends into contemporary aesthetics better and feel more than the former. And as for the Broly movie, it's even more apparent in that regard. It totally fits with today and feels fresh and trending. It's just a shame that some of the characters in said show are still catching up, or even worse, haven't changed a bit. I'm looking at you, Chi-Chi. You're about as fresh as mother-in-law jokes. And I know, she can't help it, so I'm looking at you, Toriyama, as well. Now, this change in tone isn't just kept to the heroes of the show naturally. It applies to the entire widget. Everybody needs to change. Character development is not a thing that we often associate with recent incarnations of Dragon Ball, and it really should be if pretty much everything else has been modified, for better or worse. In fact, we are more eager to attribute it to the likes of post-Tournament of Power Frieza rather than something from the leading characters. I mean, obviously not counting Goku accepting his Saiyan name in the Broly movie. It is worth mentioning, of course, but it's too small to talk about too in-depth about yet. If you've been reading the manga, and by the way, if you haven't, it's really something you should look into, chapter 60 has shown us that something important has shifted, something that Haverock in particular has been touting for years. Now, it's not like the entire Moro arc hasn't been leading to this turning point or anything, but it was chapter 60 that made us fully realize a few things about Goku and, more importantly, Vegeta, our main topic for today. For a very long time, we have been trying to find the flashpoint where Vegeta transforms from the hot-headed and cyclical character from the Buu saga to the era of his life where he is far more composed, relaxed, assured, which is what we see at the end of Z. There, he looks quite chilled, and we always wondered and speculated what caused that to happen. Now, we actually might either have a very strong clue or our answer. What greatly inspired us to write this discussion at all was a certain tweet from Carthu's Dojo, and if you haven't seen his essays and what ifs on YouTube, you really should give them a gander, by the way. In this tweet, he notes that Vegeta's journey started with him disregarding hard work and training at the beginning of the Saiyan saga, only to then become someone who is deeply associated with both of those things. He initially followed the Frieza school of thought of basically relying on your latent power, and that would be enough to carry you through for the rest of your life. And yes, granted, up until Dragon Ball Z, that was pretty much the case, as nothing was strong enough to challenge that way of thinking, but naturally, Goku came along and decked their schnozzes so much that a new way of going about things was required for both our prince and his former boss. But I can imagine that you guys may say that what we're talking about here is nothing new, as this is indeed reaffirmed in Dragon Ball Z, but we are tempted to say that the recent Dragon Ball Super manga chapters are giving it a pretty unique spin this time around, and perhaps tapping into something that Toriyama may have been musing about since as early as 2014. In an interview he did for Saikyo Jump, where he was mostly discussing about the Saiyans in general in a Q&A, Toriyama was asked about what he had in mind for Bardock, but also Vegeta, and this is what he said. Vegeta, whose pride had been deeply wounded, sought help from Bulma, and little by little, his ruthless personality changed. In the event that there's talk of another animated film, then next time, I'd like him to play the main role. Of course, this is nothing more than intentions, and I haven't decided anything at all. This isn't just a flight of fancy or anything, or nothing that came to fruition. Toriyama did toy with this idea in the end of this hero state in Resurrection F, where Vegeta got to play a main role, briefly, who would defend the planet and show how powerful he was against Frieza in a way that was fitting to his character, so it didn't look too unnatural and suddenly, "Oh, look at me, I'm basically Superman!" No, it wasn't quite like that, but this is Toriyama we're talking about here. He is the master of subversion and going against the grain when it comes to what the audiences want. It's a notable but also frustrating part of his style. Frieza did win against Frieza and acted sort of like a hero, but Goku eventually took that away from him with a temporal redo from Whis, and to boot with all references to it erased, save for Whis and Goku remembering. So much for that then. So that first musing didn't quite play out the way we wanted, but we might be seeing a more concerted effort this time coming from Toyotaro, one which may feel much more in keeping with his teacher's sentiments. It all begins with some very subtle actions, one being that Vegeta asks someone for training instead of going off on his own and angrily shouting at nobody in particular to get said power. And while you may agree that he's already done that with Whis, in quite a comedic way too, I might add, I would like to point out that Whis is currently the most powerful character that we have in Universe 7, and that he was already seeking his aid to be as strong or more powerful than Goku. So Vegeta really didn't need to ask, Whis was probably going to train him anyway. That's why him seeking help from the Yardratians in particular, in quite a proactive manner, feels rather different. The old Vegeta, if given this situation in the present Moro arc, would have just gone off into space or some solitary location and somehow figured out a tactic to beat Moro, just out of the ether. Here though, he is willingly seeking guidance from somebody who got the best out of his rival, Kakarot. It's a pretty big step away from his iconic template. Vegeta is not only asking someone weaker than himself for help, but he also does this for the greater good. All of this is out of necessity for defeating a greater evil that is Moro, rather than just doing it for the sake of getting stronger for his own benefit or to beat Kakarot. By going about this shows that he's not only slowly growing into the role of Earth's protector, something that we've also used in our color theory videos, a role that he also seems to fully embrace by the time of End of Z era, like we said earlier too, but also that he's no longer improving himself for the sake of his own ego, or even to defend his family. Vegeta is looking at the bigger picture, finally. Vegeta has become the character that revolves around a sense of duty, and is slowly becoming much more heroic than even Goku, seeking new solutions against a danger that cannot be beaten in normal ways. We, as a fandom, have longed for the prince to better himself and become the top banana in the show in his own right. There is always a sense of excitement whenever he gets to do something cool, like when he got the red power in the Broly movie. I remember being in the cinema, loads of people screeching with glee when that happened, and one person even went, "Yeah boy!" Goku never got that. This prince clearly means a lot to many people. Now, let's briefly concentrate on the other side of the spectrum, Goku. Oh man, we don't need to go too deep with how Super has been very bizarre with his character development, but let's try and give it a shot anyway. While at first glance we don't see too many changes in regards to Goku, as his character arc isn't really meant for progression, we still see a certain change that is very interesting. One thing is for sure, Goku is acting far less erratically in the Moro arc of the manga than he did in the anime. He is acting here much more like his proper character identity, rather than the bumbling fool that we've grown accustomed to in Super. Toyotaro may be still learning his craft, but he already has a good handle on how Goku should behave, for the most part, when given entire control. It means that we're not constantly shouting at the pages going, "Goku, what are you doing?" We've also pointed out many times that Goku's initial reaction to Moro was rather fascinating, and certainly striking. Very unlike what he usually does when hearing or seeing a new enemy. Usually he's curious or even excited, but here, he was afraid of Moro's power and the ways in which he obtained it. It unsettled him, and that in of itself was noteworthy, but there's more to this. Scary opponents are nothing new for Goku, obviously. He has fought terrifying opponents before, focused on destroying the world, but Moro here is a combination of a few compelling things. First, he gets stronger and stronger without any need to train in the traditional sense. He can achieve these gains by just absorbing life energy from entire worlds in one go. Like the Tree of Might, but faster. And while you may say that, oh, Cell was drinking people all day long to gain their biomass and essence and life energy, he at least understood the value of training and martial arts in which to further enhance the energy he had gained. It was something that Goku could understand, and even Goku Black understood the importance of training. Yes, this was done in a more twisted way than usual by getting a better understanding of Goku's body, but training was still required. But Moro is right now for Goku the scariest villain that he's ever fought against. He is a villain that does not care for fighting, nor does he care for training. He's just powerful. End of. For the Ram Man, power is just a means to an end, which is obviously more power. but he isn't looking for any more challenges, anything to test his strength against. Not really. This energy is just a barrier for entry, a pay-to-win model for which Moro could do what he wants, and that angers Goku a lot. For the first time in quite a long time, he is being beaten by someone who does not respect fighting, and who can bend all the rules they could come up with to his credit. Yes, Frieza didn't care for training when we first saw him and relied on his own power to go about things, but he quickly realized the benefits of self-improvement and training, and as a result, he got Golden Frieza. He's got the training bug now. Moro never will. He's not a fighter, he's a straight-up warlock, and warlocks want power. And Haverock and I must say, for all of the times when Goku's shenanigans went unpunished, him hitting a brick wall here against Moro feels like catharsis by proxy. Okay, Goku, you wanted to fight strong guys? Go ahead, be our guest. But this time, this is someone he won't enjoy going up against, and if he doesn't like it, tough. Also, for the record, Moro is loving every second of seeing Goku getting nettled. Moro is slowly breaking Goku's spirit. As his usual train and get stronger technique does not work. Just when he thinks that it is working, Moro can just suddenly go,
"Oh, that's cute, but it's still no match for me, you wee lad,"
before then going full ham on the Saiyan, making him even more angry and frantic, and the cycle repeats. This leads to Goku rejecting Miras's training outright and basically throwing the whole plan out of the window. Yes, that's foolish, but it's still in keeping with Goku as a character to use strength to win. And that's why they need a gimmick to defeat the Ram Man, something that Goku himself is not that eager to master. Yes, he knows instant transmission, but he learned that mostly for practical reasons, and he does use it well, but most of his other tricks are very fight-based. That's why he's failed to properly utilize Ultra Instinct Sign once he got it. The last time he used this, it was his body in control, with his mind taking a back seat. His body was the one that was reacting and dodging, using it to full effect. But this time around, when he's actually awake and trying to brute force your opponent, it's not working. Sign is a defensive-based technique to get the jump on someone, and Goku just does not get it right now. In a way, Vegeta is more successful in this arc because he has shown something that Goku was lacking for quite some time: humility. Both in the sense of where he looked for help and how he interacted with other characters, including the Mechians and the Ardratians. Vegeta's mindset is now more along the lines of how to defeat Moro so he's no longer a threat, while Goku's mindset seems to be, how do I get strong enough to defeat Moro? One of those things exhibits more ego than the other, and we think that's great for the story. As much as there are some issues in the Super era of Dragon Ball, this direction for both of these characters is honestly rather refreshing for us to see, and a promise that they won't be forever stuck in a loop like we've seen for decades. They will be allowed to advance. Finally, Vegeta can progress into becoming something more than just an anti-hero. He's just a hero with a terse tone, but he will ultimately do the right thing, and with a greater sense of justice for those weaker. Goku now is settling into his own groove, free from the responsibility of being the main hero, and instead he can choose to test his power whenever he wants. He and Vegeta together, that's pretty mighty, but it's the prince in the driver's seat now. If the ending of the Moro arc keeps us up and does not disappoint us by disregarding everything that was built up to this point to just go with the cookie cutter ending, I feel this arc will be pretty memorable for years to come and provide some great material for a potential anime series in the future. This arc could be the great disruptor and truly guide Dragon Ball into the modern age, where Goku and Vegeta can become new characters, which the rest can follow. So what do you guys think? Do you think Vegeta is slowly becoming the main hero of the show? Are you feeling that Goku is changing into somebody else? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going, and I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!